This happened to me when I was 11 years old, and the year was 1994. The exact date actually being June 17th, 1994. If that date sounds familiar, it was the day of the infamous O.J. Simpson car chase. I remember this day vividly, not only because of the O.J. Simpson drama, but for what happened to me and my two friends later in the evening. A little background on me. I am now 34 years old, and I am male. I grew up in the suburbs of Spokane, Washington. The neighborhood where I grew up was a typical middle-class all-American neighborhood. Constant barbecues, kids playing outside, neighbors waving, etc. This day, everything started pretty normal. I woke up, ate some breakfast, and started playing Super Nintendo. My best friends at the time lived across the street, brothers only 11 months apart in age. Evan, age 12, and Danny, age 11. We were as close as you could possibly be at 11 years old. We had been out of school for a week or two, and our days usually consisted of riding our bikes around the neighborhood, playing baseball, playing in the dirt, you know, the usual boy stuff. I would like to add that being an 11-year-old in the early to mid-90s was freaking awesome. I have 3 daughters now, and their idea of playing is going on their tablets and creating stop-motion videos for their heavily parental-monitored YouTube channels. I guess it's just different now, but I feel very blessed to have had my childhood in the 90s. Anyway, the usual knock on the door came at around 10 a.m., with Evan and Danny standing on my front porch. This day's fun was going to end early, as we were helping Evan and Danny's parents bale hay. They owned a small 7-acre farm, and where I grew up, it was not unusual to have neighbors right next to you that had a few acres and owned farm animals. At about 3 p.m., we were called to start helping with the baling of hay. The group helping was me, Evan, Danny, their mom and dad, their 2 uncles, and a local neighborhood teenager named Mike, who was like 16 or 17. I hated this dude. He was such a douchebag. He also didn't like me, because I was the only boy in the neighborhood who didn't worship the ground this punk walked on. The job took like 5 or 6 hours. I had so much fun, because I had to drive the truck where the bales of hay were being loaded, and I literally learned how to drive at 11 years old. It was so exciting, and I couldn't wait to go home and tell my parents, not only about me learning how to drive, but to also give my mom the $20 I had just earned, which at 11 years old in 1994 was a crap ton of money. I was home about 10 minutes when the home phone rang. My mom picked it up, and it was Danny, so she hands the phone to me. He says, "Hey, my parents ordered pizza and want to know if you want to come over and eat, then stay the night." I asked my mom, and she happily said yes, but first she stated that I needed to take a shower. After my shower, I headed over, and we all sat on the back deck eating pizza, drinking soda, and just having a great time. The adults began to open beers, and before long they were pretty tipsy. I think the time was around 10 or 11 when the adults decided they were going to walk to a local bar that is literally only like a block away. The bar is actually still there to this day, and it's on a corner of a semi-busy road. Kind of an unusual place for a bar, but it obviously serves a great purpose as a local watering hole. Being left alone for a few hours at this age was actually pretty normal. After we were done eating, Mike and the douchebag teenager excused himself, thanked Evan and Danny's parents for everything, and left. But before he left, Mike specifically looked at me and gave me this weird look. I remember thinking it was weird, but didn't say anything, because it was so abnormal I didn't really know how to explain it. Eventually the adults headed to the bar, and us 3 boys immediately went into Evan and Danny's dad's hidden stash of Penthouse magazines, grabbed a few of them, brought them downstairs, and started flipping through them. That's when it started. I had this feeling that we were being watched. I can't describe how I felt like I was being watched, but anyone who's felt it before knows it's like an ominous feeling, like a sixth sense unexplained by science. However, after looking at the large sliding glass door that led to the patio/backyard, I shrugged it off as nothing because I didn't see anything. A few minutes later, I noticed the family's dog's nose pressed against the glass, tail not wagging, and intensely looking for something outside. Then the dog started barking very defensively, and that's when the fear crept back into my mind. I said to my friends, "Dude, there's someone out there." They both looked at me and literally laughed, opened the sliding glass door, and pulled me outside. Nothing. Nothing was there, and once again the fear left me. We eventually returned the magazines where we got them from and settled in downstairs in the basement. We were all lying next to each other in sleeping bags and watching the news. The O.J. Simpson story was riveting. Yes, even to 3 boys. And I can remember specifically comprehending everything the news was reporting. After watching the news for about 10 through 15 minutes, the dog started barking again, this time more defensive than before. Evan got up with some frustration, grabbed the dog and locked her in the spare bedroom. I wasn't really that startled, but I do remember thinking that this dog, being a German Shepherd, would be useful in the case that someone was outside. We turned off the lights, with the TV now being the only light, and within minutes we were all out like a light. The earlier day's work and the toll it took on our little bodies seemed to finally catch up. I woke up after being passed out for like 10 minutes, then turned off the TV, flipped over to my back, and that's when I saw him. A silhouette of a hooded person crouched and kneeled behind a patio chair, approximately 2 feet away from the sliding glass door, just looking in the window at us. The feeling of having the hair on the back of your neck stand up is probably one of the most unforgettable sensations a human being can feel. I just sat there, paralyzed with fear. I couldn't do or say anything. My heart was racing uncontrollably. I felt tears running down my face. I was literally frozen in fear. About this time is when I noticed that the sliding glass door was not even locked. I was so scared. After just lying there for a few minutes looking at this person, I began to pray that everything would be okay. Right then, that's when I noticed a motion coming from his right arm, which in the midst of my fear I remember thinking, what the hell is he doing? Well, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that this perv was jerking off, but I was too young to comprehend what he was doing. After a few minutes he stopped and started inching his way closer to the sliding glass door and cupped his hands against the window to peer in. That's when I panicked and rolled over and put my pillow over my head. Being 11 years old, I honestly didn't know what to do. I heard the sliding glass door begin to open. Then, the noise of someone running away. Then I heard the best noise I've ever heard in my life. The adults returning home from the bar. They must have scared off the perv from outside. That's when I ran upstairs, and in a fit of tears and hysteria, I tried my best to explain what had happened. Only one adult, one of my uncles, actually took me serious and went out to the backyard to investigate. He, of course, found nothing, so the cops were never called. My parents also never took me seriously, but did advise me to take better precaution locking the doors in the future. This was never taken serious by my 2 friends either. It was chalked up to my imagination. But I know what I saw. I actually used to get made fun of quite a bit leading into my teen years because of this. But whatever or whoever I saw left a huge impression on me. I obsess over locking my doors at all times, and I make sure the blinds are closed at night. Oh, one more thing. Mike, the older male teenager I hated, was later accused and convicted of molesting boys in the neighborhood as young as 4 years old. He was finally caught not too long after this, and since he was a minor, I'm not sure what happened or how he was punished. I just know that my parents sat me down one time telling me to stay away from him, and if he ever tried to hang out with me, to immediately run home. He moved away not too long after that, and that was the last I ever heard from him. I don't remember his last name, and I couldn't find anything on the internet corroborating this story. So, if you don't believe me, I don't know what to tell you. I don't actually know 100% that it was Mike, but come on, it most likely was, right? I live in the UK, in a fairly decent area with low crime rates. My parents recently separated, and were getting divorced at the time of this story. This happened 4 years ago. One night, I was just home with my dad and my dog. My mom was out, and my parents still shared the house they bought 3 years prior. On this night, it was a normal Saturday, and I went to bed at 12, falling straight to sleep. My dad goes to bed at 1, so it wasn't long after that he went to bed. I woke up to sudden shouting, and at the time I thought it was my parents, as they weren't at a civil stage in the divorce. This would be a normal event, so I left it and tried to go back to sleep. I listened closer and heard 2 male voices. I was confused, so I went to check it out. I got to the top of my stairs and saw my dad and a random man who was shouting in a different language at my dad. My dad was telling him to leave, until the man said my name and started walking up the stairs towards me. I burst into tears and started frantically crying in confusion. My dad quickly ran up the stairs to stop the man from getting closer and brought him down forcefully. I was angry and ran down to throw an iPad and kick him, but at age 12, it wouldn't have done much damage. My dad told me to run as the man grabbed my dad's neck and my dad pinned him against the wall. I grabbed a glass flower pot and motioned it towards the man's head until my dad shouted stop. I was so scared. I ran out of the house to my friendly neighbor and told him the situation. He didn't hesitate to go to my house, and he called the police. At this point, I was at my neighbor's house and was very on edge. The man refused to get in the police car and was nearly tasered as he was shouting mine, my dad's, and my mom's name. We were all scared and confused. I couldn't stay in that house, so I stayed at my cousin's for the night. In the morning I was worried, and finally found out the whole story. When I heard the story, I dropped to the floor in tears. Apparently, the man was dating my mom, and my mom told him that my dad was abusive, which is not true. No one knows how he got in, but it was freaky and strange. My dad and I think my mom gave him a key. My mom went on several dates with him until she ended it. He must have been worried and came to our house. In the end, he was arrested and put on house probation for 6 months. The other day, I found out something horrific that will haunt me forever. The man had been arrested for murder only 1 year later. I'm grateful to know that it wasn't me or my dad. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. If you would like a chance to have your story featured in an upcoming video, make sure you email it to urmaker6260@gmail.com. I'd also like to add that if you're interested in getting early access to my videos or some other cool perks, I recommend you go check out my Patreon page. I'll have a link in the description if you'd like to go check it out. I'd also like to note that if you sent me a story through Facebook, I would really appreciate it if you forwarded it to my email, the urmaker6260@gmail.com. It makes it a little easier to find everyone's story and be able to read them when I'm looking for stories. So hopefully you go ahead and do that. I hope everyone has a great day, and I'll catch you in the next video. And just remember, it's always scarier if it's true.